Well, welcome everybody to the Senior to Seniors podcast. And today I have a special guest, and I think the music fits our guest today. Um, now, Denny, I didn't even ask how to, my last name's Mazziotti. Okay, so there are different versions of Mazziotti that I get all the time, but I believe your last name's pronounced Artache.
Artache.
Oh, God.
If you're going to say it in Spanish, it's Artache, and French is Artache, like you say. But I try and use Artache. It's easier to remember.
Okay, so I got to write this down, Denny, because I'll say it wrong over and over
Oh,
again.
it's all right.
So,
Just be Denny. It's no big deal.
okay, okay. Well, let's get started. I want to introduce everybody to Denny, and let me tell you a little bit about him. Denny is the president and the CEO of his own financial group. He provides financial and distribution planning with a focus on tax mitigation, Social Security, Medicare, and life insurance. He partners with tax professionals and their clients to offer CPE, financial license sponsoring, advanced life and estate planning solutions, and access to 1031 and opportunity zone inventory. He also leverages his private wealth management partners to offer private tax mitigation and income strategies for clients. In addition, he is a public speaker. He's an educator who promotes financial awareness and literacy through workshops, podcasts, and video service for communities, companies, groups, organizations, and societies. He has published articles on finance in various media outlets and is a certified Social Security claiming strategist and a common sense Medicare solutions provider. He has an Associate of Arts degree in Business Administration and Management from Indian River State College and over 28 years of experience as a financial advisor. He says he's very passionate about helping people plan for and live a successful retirement while protecting their family assets. And he's also an author, a host of his own podcast. And the thing that drew me to Denny initially was that he is a musician. And in the place where I look to find excellent podcast guests who are very qualified and excellent, one of the things that I talked about, Denny, was that you're not a former musician, you're a performing musician, but you're a former musician that toured with some pretty big acts. And I got to tell you, this is our connection. We got a connection because while I never got beyond a certain point, I was close. I was very close. And I've got to tell you, you played in Iron Butterfly in the early 90s. And as a drummer, I played Inagata Devita 2 billion times as a youth and as a drummer and put people to sleep with
Ron
that.
Bushy, the original drummer, which I've got great memories with him. He was my favorite Butterfly guy because he was a hippie guy that just loved what he did. He was very creative at the time. It's funny, I was going to say, where'd you get that bio of me? Because I think it's a few years old. Because yeah, I'm in my 31st year, but
Okay.
what you've accused me of is true, and I have my own show as well. I like to have different guests. We don't always just talk about finance, but I stay away from politics and religion to keep to keep the topics uplifting and helpful, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I've listened to your show, and I've also listened to you on numerous podcasts that other shows that you've been
Okay?
on. So people can find you all over the internet. If they want to go to YouTube, they can find your show, and they can find you on other places as well. Let's just start with your music just a little bit, if we could. I don't want to make this about your music, but I think it's apropos for the audience I have, Denny. I work with seniors. That is principally what I have pivoted to in my business of real estate. I've been doing this for 33 years and have most recently pivoted to working and providing information to seniors to help them beyond just being a realtor, just beyond selling them something or selling something for them, to provide them with great information like I am today with you. But your entrance to all of this was through your music. So talk about some of the music and the bands that you played with, because for the seniors that are here, I'm guessing they listened and danced to a lot of your stuff. You know,
Well, I was the lead single lead guitar player for Iron Butterfly in the early to mid 90s. I was best friends. This is when I was in Los Angeles. I was best friends with the guys from Three Dog Night, so recorded and toured with them. But man, I've shared a stage with so many iconic, I mean, Badfinger, Eric Burden, and the Animals, Rare Earth. I was Mickey Dolentz's guitar player for a while, great guy, and he actually became a client of mine when I got into this business. And, I know that and $5 will get me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but I certainly love the experience. I still play for fun. I do rock, blues, jazz. I have a Santana tribute. A lot of my clients get a big kick out of it. I think my background gave me an interesting perspective where I'm not just a bean counter. And the reason why is I'll help anybody that needs help and is coachable because I certainly know what it's like to be poor and broke
hmm
and yourself and being responsible. A lot of the financial things that make sense is not that much different from diet and exercise. It's a discipline. You have a plan together, you execute the plan. It's all a grind. There's no magic pill that just cures all, be all for everyone. So the best thing the seniors can do is to get as much information as they can and deal with an independent. I know fiduciaries used a lot, and you see the commercials. Hey, I'm a fiduciary because I don't sell you commission products. And fiduciary can be taken in a lot of ways, but ultimately, it's having your client's best interest at first. I don't think there should be a separation between fee-based and commission-based. It's just a fact that did you solve your client's problem and did you give them a viable solution?
right.
So, and I think my background is interesting because again, I've worked with rock stars and money is something that they used to teach in education in the K through 12, but not really anymore. So there's a
Yeah,
lot of information too. I think I've been blessed with a lot of published articles because I'm a no nonsense. I don't believe you should do something because you heard it or someone told you without a good reason. There's got to be a reason for everything. And seniors, why it's important is they don't have the time to make up for some very painful mistakes that can happen if they make the wrong choices. If
sure,
that
sure.
makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of victim to that myself because, should have started saving. I should have started planning for my retirement when I was in my late 30s and 40s, but I didn't. I was just trying to make ends meet, just trying
Right.
to do it. And of course, it got put back and put back and put back. Thankfully, I had a wife who planned, who was a lot smarter than me, and put together IRA and 401k, all of that stuff. So, we can live the way that we live now. And but I got to say, you're kind of humble with all of this, with your music, and we won't talk a lot more about your music because I want to get to some questions I have. But you won the 2024 Southwest Florida Blues Society regional competition, so you're no slouch on guitar, okay? And you're a
Yeah,
player.
I've been accused of being, better than average. And
Yeah, yeah,
I think music is a gift from God. It's a release. I'm always going to do it. I just decided years ago that I wasn't going to make a living at it.
yeah,
With my business allows me to play music for the right reason, for the release. I mean, I do a lot of free shows for veterans. Every honor flight at the airport, I perform for them. I just did something with Congressman Mast. So I'm always going to play. I just don't want to go on the road and eat crappy food and get,
sure.
little sleep and
Yeah,
tell myself that I'm living the dream. And nothing against anyone if that's what they want to do. But,
right, right.
music, even when I was with these famous bands, it wasn't as glorious as people think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know.
and that's what they have to understand that you can be the greatest talent in the world, but what kind of life do you want? So I made that decision years ago. but I still play for fun. I'm always going to play for fun.
I heard on a podcast, and I heard you say something that I remember, that the decision for you to actually do something where you can make a living doing it and not doing it the tough way, the music way, was when one of the members of Three Dog Night was on your couch, or as I recall. So
Yeah.
talk
Well, so
about
you
that a
heard
little
that.
bit.
So
Yeah.
it's a true story. Here I am playing with these iconic guys, and he is literally sleep. Joe Shermy, the bass player from Three Dog Night, we're best friends, and we recorded in the American Recording Studios. Him, me, and Floyd Sneed, the drummer. Talk about a rhythm section. I mean, we played in LA in bars and stuff, and little did I know how lucky I was at the time, because I I didn't suck, as the saying goes, so I probably took myself a little too seriously and not realize that I'm playing with royalty. But yes, he was sleeping on my couch and we were eating Jack in the Box cheeseburgers. When it dawned on me, you know what? If this is what living the rock star life is, I probably should learn another trade. I can always play music. And Joe, he got upset with me. He thought I sold out. And I said, Joe, I love you, but I don't want to be you. You have millions of dollars owed to you. You owe taxes. I don't want to get into his personal life because he was just an amazing, one of the most underrated bass players in music history that I've ever had the opportunity to be so close with. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
wrote music together, recorded, and he was just unbelievable. But to your point, terrible with money. A lot of musicians are terrible with money. Same with athletes. And hence, a lot of Americans are terrible with money unless they run into someone to try and preach discipline to them. You said that you knew you needed to do something, but you got caught up with living paycheck to paycheck, probably, like
Mm-hmm.
many people, where if the message is, look, put a little something, something away. I don't care what it is, 50 bucks, 100. Start the habit. Like maybe don't eat 4 slices of pizza, eat two, and slowly
Mm-hmm.
you'll lose the weight that you want. And finance is real similar. You have to have the discipline to be successful at it. But it is a grind, especially today, I feel, for many families that are living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
They, they don't have much of a choice. So therefore, they cannot invest. But I still believe that you can find a way if you're dedicated to it.
Sure. Well, you obviously made the right decision at that time. I'm sure it was a tough decision, to make. And I want to thank you for your service in the military as an
I
Army veteran.
thing I've done. It humbled me. I served overseas, and that's another reason why I do a lot for veterans. It breaks my heart that so many that served honorably are homeless or strung out on drugs, or they just feel that nobody cares about them anymore. And it's a special place in my heart, so I will always perform for them and do for veterans.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you, for what you do for veterans. Many need help. So, your music career, your career blends both finance and music. So, how did those two worlds, two completely different worlds, shape your approach to helping people prepare for retirement?
I think my experience is a common sense, not a nerdy bean counter approach, because everyone is so different. You can't pigeonhole everyone to do exact same things. There are many strategies, and I think much like improvising in music, you have to be that way when it comes to finance. You can have a common sense approach and a discipline approach, but you have to think outside of the box. And again, seniors have less time to make up for bad mistakes. When you're younger, it's a lot, you have time on your side. Even if you've made the wrong investments, that they're unfavorable, typically over time you can recover from it. But if you're already in your 60s and beyond, and you're counting on every dollar to pay your bills, you really should be careful in what you're doing. You should understand risk, and there's risk in everything. You can go broke by playing it safe and not taking any risk because you're not keeping up with inflation. And let's face it, inflation is never going to go away. They can
Yeah.
tame it all they want, but the simple fact is everything always goes higher in price. There's never been too many exceptions to that rule, except maybe technology for a few years when they were competing against each other for market share. But everything else, food, energy, utilities, cars, homes, always goes higher. And you have to think outside of the box. Not everything should be tied to the stock market. Real estate is a viable investment if you know what you're doing. So are commodities and gold and silver. If you are always trying to the true diversification means you have something that's not correlated to your other investments. It's funny, I run into people that they have different portfolios and they think they're diversified, but they have the same companies.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
same 500 companies, Fortune S&P 500s, but because it's in three or four different accounts, they think they're diversified. So I feel a lot of what I do is educate, and clients typically uh, like that I do that because they're going to ultimately make their own choices because it's their money and it's their life. We can say
sure,
what we want of what they should do,
yeah,
but it's their money and it's their life, and things could change in 5 to 10 years.
sure. And Denny, especially for seniors, there's a lot of financial noise. I mean, there's a lot of noise, period, that can confuse seniors. But when you get a new client, when you talk to a new client, what's the first thing that you discuss with a client to help them get on the right path to their own success?
Well, I ask a lot of questions. I like them to do most of the talking because I want to know what their experience has been. Hey, have they ever had a true independent like me in the past? How's that worked? Tell me about some things that you did that did work, that didn't work, and what are your goals? What are you ultimately trying to do here? Because part of the biggest concentration going forward is the estate planning. I have my own attorneys now, my own trust company, my own onboarding staff, because to me, uh, in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to have the greatest transference of wealth from 87 trillion to 150 trillion. Yeah, the numbers keep going exponentially crazy. And the fact that all this hard-earned money, 70% of it, whether it's 100,000 or 10 million, gets spent down within a year and a half. And so there's the whole taxation issue. But I also like people to understand that you have to live for today too. You can't just put all your eggs on what 10 years is going to be. You have to live today comfortably and reward yourself at the same time too. So when I meet with a client, I ultimately want to know what their goals are, what their concerns are, their fears, what their experience is, what they know and understand, because the first thing I've got to do is educate them on what's out there so they can
Yeah.
make decisions. Hey, like, for example, I've had a lot of success marketing about annuities because, and I'm not pro or against annuities. They're just another tool in the belt,
Hmm.
one of
Hmm.
six pieces that can be going. But a lot of people get bad information on that. Are they bad? Are they good? Well, some are good, some are bad. It depends on what you're trying to do. Let me explain the moving parts. It also blows my mind if you take annuities out of the equation, even fee-based business, how they never discuss with clients that, hey, based on how we're investing for your risk tolerance and what you're trying to do, we may be down 20 or 30% in a year. And I want you to understand that if you're not comfortable with that, then we need to rethink about what we're doing. And because remember, there's risk in everything. If you play it too safe, you may not keep up with inflation because what costs $1 today is going to be probably $3.50 in 10 years.
Hmm.
And that's not really a far, stretch in assuming that. But for seniors, because they don't have the working time to make up for losses or bad decisions, they have to be especially careful. And I believe that most people would make the right decisions if they truly understand the pros and cons of everything. So, to answer your question, I really want to know what my client's experience has been, what they're trying to do, what the risk is. And we have to agree that we're going to work together for the same goal. And that is to get them to wherever it is that they're trying to reach. Hey, I want X amount of income. I don't want to be in debt. There's a lot of things that encompass that. There's medical stuff too. A lot of clients that I take on, I may give them a copy of my book because I do believe that the healthier you are, the better you are at making decisions for for your better well-being. If you don't have your mental and physical stuff in order, it's going to be tough to uh, stay on point with a portfolio and stay on top of everything, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. I
Yeah.
think
It
they have
makes,
in hand because remember, investing and planning takes a discipline, and you have to have a discipline in yourself as well. That's just my personal belief system. In my book, I talk about it
yeah.
that you have your finance and your mental and health well-being in order because it's tough to have one without the other.
Well, that's, very point in your book. And by the way, um, Denny's book is called Thoughts to Live By. And I believe it's an 80-page book. It's not a long book. It's a short focus. Really, it's a manual for
It's by
for
design,
anyone.
yes. The reason I did that is there's many books that I like, but a lot of times the author doesn't get to the point until the end of the chapter. And the reason that is they like to use examples. In my style, I tried to write my book in the fashion of James Allen, As a Man Thinketh,
Uh-huh.
where, hey, here's a certain topics that we need to master if we want to have a successful, positive, and fruitful life. You know, get right to the point. Here's how you should deal with it. And there's some brief examples as to why you should focus on it. And I also have it where you can listen to me reading it, and I'm playing some music and some of the things. But thank you for noticing that. Yes, it's by design a short read, so that the 13 different chapters deals with things like guilt, anger, fear, death, positive thinking, being physical, and manifesting other things. I think it all goes hand in hand, like I said, with investing as well. And it means,
I,
you cannot be a well-rounded musician unless you think outside of the box and you have the discipline of rehearsing and practicing and putting in the work.
Yeah, well, the book is it's available, on the internet. It's available on Amazon, and I purchased the Kindle version. So for anybody that would like, that version or any of them, it's available to you. Danny, tell me in your bio, and I'm sorry it was dated or at least 3 years old. I thought I was updated, but
No, I said, hey, I kind of like that, but I think it's an old bio. Where did you bio? But it
I,
doesn't.
I yeah.
What question do you have for me, my friend?
Yeah, I searched out for you. Tell me, what is a claiming strategist?
Well, in Social Security, there's so many ways you can do it. So, the old adage in Social Security claiming was, hey, if I take it early at 62 and I live to, be 67 or 68, then I'm breaking even going forward. So even though I'm making less money, what if I died in a couple of years? But I always tell people, listen, if you're going to die in a couple of years, it doesn't matter what you do,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's if you live a long time, did you make the right decisions? So Social Security claiming encompasses a lot of moving parts because it's not just a dollar amount, but it's the taxation because Social Security is more favorably taxed as opposed to, being taxed 100% on investment income. So you kind of juggle the taxation and the longevity issue. For example, if you know you're going to live to your 80s and possibly 90s, you'd probably want to delay it to having a bigger benefit to make more money and pay less in income tax. I've seen such a huge difference where, you may have a taxable income of 80,000 doing it the wrong way, where if you do it properly with Social Security, your AGI may be 20,000 and you're making more money at it. So that's the tough part about Social Security claiming. It's not just the amount, but the taxation and what you have else going with you, like investment income, a pension, uh, and the other thing is spouses and children. So, you can make mistakes that could cost you six figures in a lifespan. So it's kind
sure.
of look at it.
Yeah, and I think, at least for me, I had never heard the term claiming specialist or strategist before. And maybe there are other financial planners that use that language. But gosh, the conversations that I've had with people as to when to take Social Security are just, they're basically flipping a coin. They don't do it with any strategy. And they just, they'll look, you know,
Jim, they mostly think about it as, well, how long am I going to live? I don't know. So let me just take it now. They don't think about,
yeah, yeah.
listen, taking it early may sound great in theory, but you're locking in that it's never going to get higher where you, from the age of, say, 62 to 70, and you throw in, let's say, a 2% cost of living adjustment. I didn't know we were going to get this deep in Social Security, but whatever topic you throw at me, I usually do something 150%. So I never have
Well,
a
yeah, and to the
from
audience,
62 to 70, you throw in a cost of living adjustment and you time it properly, it could be a difference of 110% over a span of a lifetime. So that's serious money. That's six figures because not only in the amounts, but in the taxes that you save. Let's face it, with our debt load as a country, I am not confident that taxes are going lower in the future. They have to
yeah,
pay the tab eventually. And
yeah,
most ways they will do that is by raising tax. Of course, the current administration does not feel that way, but we don't know who's going to win and be in the White House in the next election and the next election after that. But I can tell you, remember, I don't talk politics or religion.
politics.
Um, someone has to address the debt load, and the way they usually address it is by raising taxes.
Yeah,
So you have to be careful, not just on the amount, but how much money you actually get to keep. And that's where the claiming strategy comes into play.
well, thanks, because yeah, I had never heard that, and thanks for clearing that up for me, and hopefully for those listening as well. Denny, you deal with retirement and planning, with tax mitigation, with Social Security, with Medicare, with legacy and estate planning, with real estate to 1031 exchanges and opportunity zones. I don't think we need to go to opportunity zones necessarily, but I just want to touch on Medicare.
Okay.
It seems like such a hot topic right now. So, what do you see are common missteps that cost seniors a lot of money and can damage their lives?
Well, I mean, first of all, they shouldn't believe that, and I love them all. Captain Kirk, Joe Namath, and Jimmy Walker knows what plan you should join. And
Yeah, yeah,
there are rules against calling seniors and marketing because they're easily strayed on free stuff. The Medicare, I've been certified now. I'm not currently actively certified because my partner handles it all. I don't want to look up doctors and medications. But what seniors need to understand is there is no free lunch. So what happens is a lot of Medicare Advantage plans, which they started back in 2002 under George Bush, and they became available where they said, hey, you're going to have a plan and we cover so much for you and you have cheap doctor visits. What they need to understand is when it comes to Medicare, you either have a choice of having the best plan, like a Medigap supplemental plan, where you can go anywhere and where the rubber hits the road is, God forbid you get cancer or something serious, and you want to go to the best cancer institutes that are out there. They more than likely will not accept an Advantage plan. They will accept the Medigap plan. And the reason is when you have a Medigap plan, and man, I could keep you on for an hour talking about Medicare, but I'm trying to make it as condensed as possible. The
sure.
Advantage promise you cheap copays to see doctors, but then you've got to deal with their networks. And you could still have an out-of-pocket expense of, say, $7,000 or more that you have to deal with. The Medigap plans, you can get something that it could cost you, let's say, $350 a month, and you have no copays, and you can go wherever you want to. So then you have to ask most people, is that a lot of money for having the best health insurance? But for those who are not well off and they cannot afford, they can get a decent Advantage plan. They just have to figure out if it's a PPO, what kind of networks they have, They have to see that their doctors accept it. And the trade-off is they could still be balanced billed. My father had an Advantage plan. He died of cancer. He had a $20 to $30,000 bill that we had to deal with in one of these Advantage plans. Had he had the Medigap plan, which covers balanced billing, people saying, what the hell is balanced billing? He would have had nothing that he had to pay. But once again, in a world where people living paycheck to paycheck, they can't afford $300 a month to get the best plan. There are different versions of it where you might pay $60 a month and have a deductible. But like I said, we could spend an hour just on Medicare. But the basic difference is if you want the best plan to go wherever you want to, you're going to have to pay for it. And think about it. 350 is a lot less than people under 65 trying to get an Affordable Care Act premium, which has gone recently from $500 to $3,000.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
educate about health insurance. I look my clients in the eye and go, if you could go anywhere in the planet to get the best coverage and the most out of your pocket is $3,000 or less, is that a lot of money? And if they say, of course not, then they should do the Advantage plan. If
Yeah.
they, Denny, I have, $3,000 in the bank and I can't afford most groceries. They should probably do the Advantage plan and then do their research on which there are a lot of good Advantage plans. You just have to do the research on the networking, okay? And I would
Yeah.
say people are better suited with a PPO, but the HMOs, they sell a lot of them because a lot of them are zero premiums. You can go see a doctor for $10 or $15, but that's not real insurance. Real insurance to me is if I have to have a $500,000 operation, what's the most out of my pocket? Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Makes total sense.
So you have to look at the big picture in that, much like the Social Security claiming, hey, I can start it early and I'm going to make all this money, but wait a minute. The thing about Social Security, people do the opposite. They delay their investments and take Social Security early. If they did it the opposite, they would make more money and pay less in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a discipline.
Yeah. If if somebody's turning 65 this year, and I think most of my audience is 55 and over,
Okay.
uh, but if they're turning 65 this year, what kind of strategies do you suggest, or do you open up to them to consider for what they need to be looking for?
I'm a big believer in budgets because here's the thing. If you are unable to follow a budget in your working years where you're making the most money, what makes you think you're going to do that when you're a senior? You have to start the
Hmm.
habit early. So most
Hmm.
seniors, if they come to me, I want to know what their budget is. Are they in debt? If they are in debt, can we fix that? Because unless you're going to go bankrupt, you're going to have to pay the debt down. You're not the US government. You can't
Sure.
kick it down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot is predicated on their budget. Hey, what's coming in? What's going out? What are my liabilities? And how can I fix that? I really believe a lot of seniors miss the point that they should have a lot of cash in the bank for emergencies and unforeseen things that pop up. And when I say a lot, let me rephrase it. At least 20, 30, 40,000, depending on what their budget is. If they
Hmm.
need $6,000 to $8,000 a month because that's what their bills are, they better have at least 30, 40,000 in the bank. Because if they don't, then we need to address that. And maybe they need to change that 8,000 a month to 4 to 5,000. What can they do? And so when you figure out what's coming in and what's going out, it's a lot easier to make your decisions. And then you can have excess money to invest with. But
Okay.
again, this should have started in their working years. And when they get to be 65, they're just continuing. The difference is they're no longer making the same amount of money in many cases. However, if they plan right and they have a pension and they're taking Social Security and they have investments that they're drawing from, they can be on cruise control. And it's all about a budget. Some of the biggest challenges for retirees is they start spending more because they
Yeah.
a lot of time in their hands and they don't think about it. Or they say, well, this is on sale, so let me just get it. But do you really need it? Do you really
Yeah.
need it?
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah.
a lot of what we do, or at least what I do, is govern behavior, govern behavior. Ultimately, it's their money. I never tell clients you shouldn't do something. I just say, listen, if you do something, these are the ramifications. And as long as you know, I'm okay with it. Kind of
So
like
tell.
kind of like people that were investing and the tariff things happened in March and they just wanted to panic and sell.
Uh-huh.
And I said, has anything changed? Are we still investing for the next 10 years? Yes. Then we're not doing anything.
Hmm.
And we've already invested properly. We're not too aggressive. We're not too conservative. We're somewhere in the middle. And we discussed that this is what the market does.
Yeah.
And it,
And I saw with some of my clients, some of the people that live in my retirement community that were, the sky was falling, and they were panicked and need somebody to ground them like you, someone that can hold their hand and
I,
get
you
them
know,
through this.
what I pride myself in a few things. One of them I pride myself is I've been licensed since 94 and I don't have any customer complaints or lawsuits or arbitrations. And part of it, maybe I'm selfish because I never want to do something to someone that doesn't make sense or they don't understand it or they lose money that we didn't discuss. I don't want the phone calls. I'm never going to get referrals from them. And I just can't, I would lose too much sleep. I just don't
Sure,
want it in
I
my
get it.
life. I don't care what it pays. So ultimately, I want to do what makes sense for the client, and I need the client to understand the moving parts so that there are no surprises. If there's a chance that your portfolio will be down 20 to 30%, we're going to discuss that before it happens, not
Hmm.
when it happens.
Hmm.
And if you're not okay with that, we have to be intentional and more careful on how we're investing.
Yeah, and it's very much the same when I work with people to list their home as to what it's going to sell for and what they're going to end up with at the end, and we have to plan for it, and especially in these particular times. I think what's most challenging that I've seen in my business is that the huge appreciation that so many seniors have earned the last 10 years,
Oh,
15
yeah.
years. Yeah,
I
it's not going to continue. It's not likely to continue like it was before. And how is that going to affect seniors who were thinking, well, listen, I'm just going to plan on 10% appreciation every year on my home, and that is going to be my piggy bank, and I'm set. And what I'm afraid of is that's going to affect so many seniors.
well, the thing is, the old adage was pay off your house, be out of debt. That was the American dream, right? You work for 30 years, you have the pension, you pay off your house, you have the white picket fence, and you have no debts. But a lot of things have changed. First of all, people are working longer than they used to. Pensions are really not the norm anymore. So people
Hmm.
have to think outside of the box. With regards to real estate, if you were smart enough and have privileged enough to own in the last 10, 20 years, you have been rewarded. Whether or not it continues, the simple fact is, unless we have a bubble that destroys the real estate market, people still have to live somewhere. And
Hmm.
the price, I believe that renting is a lot higher than owning
Yeah.
because not control that. So, in my opinion, and I've been asked this many times from clients what I think about real estate, and I still believe, with the exception of being a flipper and outfoxing the market and trends, you always should get appreciation on your property going forward because that's just a natural, everything goes higher. The groceries do,
Hmm.
utilities.
Hmm.
So, but if you want to buy real estate for investment reasons, that's a viable thing too. But there are other, the 1031s are typical when people don't want to manage and collect checks anymore. They just
Yeah.
want a dividend. And when their kids inherit the properties, they get it in a stepped up basis where they don't pay the taxes. I've
Right.
seen many programs. I've never personally done a reverse mortgage, but I see that that has helped many seniors because if they don't have a lot of investments and they want to stay in their house and they can figure it out, because ultimately they want to be comfortable until they pass on.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when I first heard him, I said, yeah, I don't know if I would do that. But if it makes sense and you don't have, remember, thinking outside of the box in today's world, I
Hmm.
encourage people to look at many options because there's many ways you can get to the promised land or at least maintain a doable lifestyle, you know?
Sure.
And what's
Yeah.
happening is more seniors are coming back to work, not just for the money, but so that they're not in the couch watching the news for 8 hours a day, which is, my God, that's why you die. If you just
Yeah.
do,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to do something with your life. And remember, early in our conversation, I'm a firm believer in mental and physical health, which will help you make better decisions in your finances.
Yeah. Yeah. Denny, we're kind of running out of time, but there's a question I ask all my guests that I try to prepare, for things for us to talk about for our conversation. But I always feel that there's one thing I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked, or that you wish that you could talk to my audience about. Is there anything that I failed to ask that I should have, but I didn't?
No, I mean, there's so many topics we could have gone on. And the only thing I can tell you is maybe you should ask what motivates me to do what I do. And the answer to that is there's no better gift in this life than not only to have a successful life, but to share that and help others have a successful life. That's
Yeah,
why I still perform, I still speak publicly, I still do a podcast. For me, it's not just about the dollars and cents. If
yeah,
it was, I wouldn't be the same type of advisor that I am.
yeah.
I
And it's the same for me because with this podcast, there are ways to monetize this, but it isn't about the monetization of this,
right.
Denny. It's about meeting people that can help the people that I work with in ways that I can't because I don't have the knowledge to know what a claiming strategist is. I missed that. I missed that somewhere, right?
It's a fancy word for a discipline coach in many ways.
Yeah,
Because remember, I think the message in all that we do is to remind people that life is a grind. It's not easy. It wasn't meant to be easy. And those who succeed are those who are willing to do what so many are not willing to do. And that's okay. But to know that finances, health, goal setting, happiness, all the things come with the price of discipline, following a plan, and having the tenacity to get up no matter how many times you get knocked down.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a message that I think is very important. And certainly I didn't invent it. I stole it from many great philosophers.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I get it. So tell me, where are you at, and how can people get a hold of you, Denny?
Well, I'm in Jupiter, Florida.
Okay.
I so am lucky. God has blessed me that I live and I have an office here. You can look up Artache Financial Group. It has my website. I have my estate planning, ArtacheEstatePlanning.com as well. It's easy to find me. I mean, so that's why I don't owe anybody money or anything like that because I'm still doing a lot of things out there. I'm still playing. I'm still speaking. I have a I have a full library on Saturday and on Monday as well. And I'm playing this weekend. So you can catch me by just Googling my name, I guess. But I am located in Florida. I mean, I could give you my office line, but they can
You
look
can
me up.
find it. We can find it. Yeah. And so, well, I
Nice
encourage
being your
people.
guest. And I think we've had a great conversation. And I applaud you for doing your podcast for the same reason I do mine. And that is to educate, entertain, and pass some good stuff to other people that may need to help.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate you, and this has been fabulous. Denny, thank you so much for being with me today. And I will have your contact information in the show notes for this.
Great.
Uh, you will be on Spotify and Apple and YouTube, so people will be able to see this. And I hope we have the pleasure to talk again. I wish you were next door so we could have a cup of coffee from time to time.
Exactly right. Well,
Uh,
you never know, my brother. Let's stay in touch. And again, thanks for having me as a guest. Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bye bye.
Bye.